everybody. I want to welcome you to the podcast episode Scale Adventures. I have with me a very experienced entrepreneur, Naveed Salman. He's got 15 years experience in technical advisory, and he's worked both in the US and globally. Naveed, before I go into the questions, I just want to say a warm welcome. But before we dive into the details, how would you like to be introduced, or what would you want to say about your work?
First of all, thanks a lot for having me here. I appreciate it. My elevator pitch is actually very simple. We implement software solutions for the office of the CFO. So if you think about my work related answer, how I introduce myself and my work, that's as simple as that. My background is finance and accounting. And just to give a quick introduction, COGENICS, based out of California, we have office in India and we're expanding in UK right now with few hires.
I think it's very interesting that you have this intersection of both finance and technology. From the position where you are at, what are some things that you see the office of the CFO needing? Some maybe obvious problems or some not so obvious opportunities that you tend to help that type of an audience with?
Of course, the office of the CFO has evolved quite a bit. Traditionally, if you look at office of CFO, you think about accountants, you think about somebody who's got a CPA background degree and running that show. But if you look at the Silicon Valley, your typical CFO is not really an accountant or a CPA. They might have exposure to those, but they're not really that traditional accountant and CPA. So they are largely responsible for strategy, fundraising, and they are trained to look at that world with a different lens, and that lens is more analytical than anything else because the fast changing world is pretty global, it's globally very connected, businesses are connected as well, and you need data, you need to decipher information. And so these CFOs have become more analytical, if anything else.
Got it. And what I'm also hearing is the difference between the nature of the type of businesses that come out of the Valley and how specifically you have a kind of orientation and a focus on it versus, let's say, a traditional business and what the CFO role would be over there. You've talked about at a high level, the need for data, the ability to be analytical, the ability to move quickly. What are 2 or 3 high-level opportunity areas that you have been seeing over the last couple of years that you have been helping?
So first of all, let me just finish my thoughts on the data, right? So you have this crazy amount of information out there available, and that information is coming from a lot of different sources. You think about it, you have your B2B, you have your cloud, you have analytics, you have social media, you have on-prem, you have IoT, and you have mobile. So all these information becomes like part of your data lake or your data structure, your data warehouse. But how to get that information out and make our own business decision based on this is where we come in. So we help the office of the CFO in basically deciphering all that information, getting into these models and sub-models so they can actually just run their analytics and make decisions based on where the company's headed. Not where they are right now, but because of changing environment, changing metrics, changing drivers, where the business is heading. And the business owners rely on that information to make those decisions and come up with strategies to see if there's a risk. CFO's job is to also mitigate the risk. There's a lot of risk in the marketplace, and they want to make sure that they mitigate that. And how to mitigate that if you don't understand that. So that's basically where we come in with all these information systems we implement. So they'll help them forecast, plan, and budget. So that's one way to make sure that there's a lot of ambiguity in the day-to-day.
I'm getting a much more clearer sense of that gap between data and decision and all the pieces play, all the drivers that you hit. Without giving any confidentiality away, could you give us an example, perhaps, of a before-after picture?
No, absolutely. So think about SaaS companies, right? The most complex thing about managing SaaS financial planning analysis is their revenue planning, revenue forecasting. As you understand, you can get a subscription, you can sell a subscription, and as a provider, you can actually just forecast for that time of that subscription. So for example, if it's a year, if it's month to month, but you as a consumer can cancel your subscription anytime. There's a lot of elasticity built into these forecasting cycles, and how do you predict those? That's one use case where they come to us, and what we do is we build them a financial model. Financial model is based on our cloud systems, and basically what they do is they get the information, for example, from their CRM, which could be Salesforce, looking at all the bookings. We get backlog information from the ERP system. We get basically their workforce information from their HRIS. It could be Workday or anything else. So now, bringing all that information together, now we can construct a model. We can talk about what's their ARR is going to be, what's the bookings going to be, and what's basically their future cash flow is going to be based on that. They can change those drivers. They can build those drivers for them so they can actually predict how much new logos they're going to bring in, what's the churn ratio, for example, and how they can minimize churn and stuff like this. We give them a lot of data points, and those data points become the drivers, and all they have to do is maintain those drivers and manage those drivers rather.
What was interesting to me about what you talked about is you went very deep on the finance side, and then you linked that back to the business model, and then you tied that to tech. I think the triaging of those three is absolutely exceptional. I think you wanted to go into a different example or a different use case. Was that where you were going with this?
Yes, absolutely. So we are vertically agnostic, right? SaaS is not the only thing we do. Being in California, yes, we do more of SaaS, more of biotechs, because that's what industry mixes in California: SaaS, biotech services, retail. But obviously, we have served a lot of different verticals and different use cases. But the way to properly use a system or application is to not basically take an application and force it around the company's processes. It's the other way around. Just take the processes and make sure that your application is a good fit.
Awesome. I want to now take this slightly away from the tech and the business world into your journey a little bit. You're at this intersection of finance, of technology, and entrepreneurial orientation towards building things. Which came first? If you look back at your journey, how did you put this together?
Yeah, great question, Akshay. I was just lucky to have good mentors in my career. And when I got into the consulting world, I was learning more about, and this is a message to all the entrepreneurs out there. When you're into a business, where you into some kind of an organization right now, take my example, consulting, you just don't have to look at your functional and technical skill sets, because that's something you got to develop. But you also got to look at the business skill sets, because in the end, you really want to make a business out of it. As a business owner, you wear a lot of different hats. There's the sales, there's marketing, there's obviously delivery, the operations, and you have to understand how they all fit into your business model as you're evolving. Back when I was in the industry, I was in the retail industry, and I was a director of finance and merchandising director rather. And I got into consulting. I got pulled into consulting, but I learned the business of consulting from my peers. And that was a good break. That was a good break, because the business of consulting is all about, for example, what are you selling? What's your value? What value you bring into your client base, and how is that relevant? And then also how to build a pipeline. But not only that, now you got to build a pipeline, how you deliver that. And so there are three different aspects of that. And I learned that in my previous world. For me, it was like a natural next step to start COGENICS. And that was about 8 years ago. Started by myself. I think we're in a great space right now, and this is a great time to be a consultant.
What I'm hearing is, from a sort of finance background, getting into consulting and then understanding the business of consulting. As part of our prep call, you used a word then that you use now, which is eminence. Tell me a little bit about that, because you use it in a way that strikes me that you've thought about that word in perhaps a deeper way than most people would think about it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Look, the one way to sell to your clients is to sell to eminence, but it's not about selling. It's not about sales all the time. I'm saying eminence for me is basically part of your brand. As an individual, no matter what you're doing, no matter what organization you're working for or working with, or you're building your own organization, it's all about your brand. And first of all, you are a brand yourself. So now how do you take care of that brand? You have to advertise your brand. And how do you advertise? By doing good work. That's one. When you do good work, people recognize that, but also write about what you've done. And that writing piece is what I call eminence. I'm not saying eminence is all about writing. Well, eminence is all about what you have built, what you can do, and then projecting that out. It seems like your own advertising. So everybody is responsible for their brand. I keep telling everybody who's working for COGENICS that you're largely responsible for your brand, and I would love to see you create one. But at the same time, I will give all the tools for you to build that brand for yourself. For example, working on a model. Make sure that you reviewed your work, or whatever that is, model or report, a template. Make sure that you have reviewed your work before you send it out. And this goes to everybody working out there. Everybody's working as an analyst, everybody working in sales, marketing. When you communicate something to a larger audience, make sure that you have your facts checked before you send it out. That's basically part of your brand. Because if something happens and you haven't done your job right, people can start drilling holes into it. easily, that means that you haven't done your homework. You're responsible for your brand. And one way to build evidence is to write about it. For example, we write white papers about where this industry is going and how we can help and how people succeed and stuff like that.
Got it. So what I'm really hearing is, and I guess this is where your life experience and your business experience is talking, which is it's not just enough to do good work. It also needs to be recognized for the work that it is in whatever format. So I think these are some of the things that have really stood out to me. But really, on behalf of people who are watching, me personally, I just want to thank you on behalf of my team, and always inspiring to meet people who are building things.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Akshay. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.